Understanding, therefore, that the city is not just the buildings and the roads and the system, but is in fact the whole point of a city are the people, to understand, and so the job is No, it's extremely important. I mean, cities tend to get wrapped up in either local, very local problems, but also seeing the city just in terms of its physical, material aspects, and not in terms of facilitating social interaction. I mean, just my little bit I just seen of Seoul. Seoul seems to work extremely well. You have lots of restaurants and lots of coffee places and so on, and I saw lots of people in the streets talking and so forth. What I didn't see so much of were public places like that. I saw,
for example?
Yeah, well, little parks and little square. You do have, I did see, I was just down by. But that's the kind of thing that facilitates people interacting. So that's the kind of thing that a city needs to encourage. Having more sports stadiums, theaters, lecture halls, these kinds of things, these are crucial for a city, even markets. All these things to encourage chemical reaction of a city. That's what a great city does.
I totally agree. Okay, so lastly, in my third question, I would like to go to the company. Companies are merged or sometimes they stop growing and ultimately they die. So the innovation is very essential part of the company to survive. And now we can witness it. Many companies change their main goals or the business lifetime with some kind of technology. They say that they are using the one or they transform their company as a tech companies, not only using but also their main goals are changing. So what should we consider? What is the more cautious point to changing of these innovative actions?
Yes, one of the things that we discovered that surprised us was that the average lifespan of a company in the United States, of a publicly traded company, so a company that's already posted on the stock market, was about 10 years. So which was really surprised. I mean, we were really surprised that if you take a cohort of companies, in 10 years, half of them will have disappeared, which is extraordinary. So companies don't last very long. I mean, even if you look at something like the Fortune 500 of 50 years ago, most of them don't exist. I mean, these were the top companies. So this is kind of surprising. One of the things that we realized as we started doing the analysis of this work, companies scale just like organisms and cities, but in the same mathematics, but in a slightly different way. In fact, they behave much more like organisms than they do like cities. They don't have this, what we call superlinear behavior. That is, the bigger you are, the more you have per capita. They tend to be like organisms. The bigger you are, the less you have per capita. They tend to be as if they're being more efficient, but ironically, that leads often to their demise, to their dying. And a lot of that is to do with what you've asked about in this question, the role of innovation. The reason cities keep growing is that they are, at all levels, continually changing and innovating, continually. A great city, and Seoul is a very large and great city, by this facilitating social interaction, at the same time is allowing all kinds of ideas to bubble up. And the people have an idea to go out, form a little company or form a little business and make things happen. Cities are continually doing that. Companies have a very hard time doing that, typically, because at the beginning, when they form, they do that. They have lots of ideas, lots of different products they think will work. But of course, the market forces then come into play and they narrow down the products to those that are successful. And those that are successful, the successful products.
They focus.
Yes, they focus. So the dimensionality, if you like, of a company actually tends to decrease as it grows, whereas a city, the dimensionality, the different kinds of things, the diversity expands. So companies get forced to be quite narrow, actually, typically. Now, that may be very good for in the short term, because that's success.
For the practice.
But in the long term, as the externalities change, you're suddenly in this sort of this very narrow dimension, but all these things are happening over here. It's very hard to move over, very hard to change for companies. And that's what forces most companies to disappear. Either they have to merge with another company, or they liquidate or go bankrupt. So now to the other part of your question, many companies, of course, recognize that the introduction of this new technological power of, first of all, big data, having this extraordinary amount of data potentially available, at the same time being able to use it in useful ways with artificial intelligence or machine learning, that, of course, may help them very much. And here's the important point. Can it help in anticipating what the changes and innovations need to be done in order to be in a position to change when the market changes? That's an open question. My own guess, it's too early, we don't know. This is only really happening in any serious way in the last 5 to 10 years. And we don't know enough yet. But my guess is that in the end, it's not going to make a big difference. That is, the problem with AI and big data is it's very good about short-term prediction. It is not good, typically, about long-term prediction, mostly because it's purely statistical. It doesn't have a dynamic, underlying, conceptual, causal framework, which is what you need. And what a good CEO or a good leader of a company has and typically by intuition, but you need much more a analytic way of thinking of it in combination with using AI and big data. But you know, we're still too early in the process. The other thing is, if everybody's doing it, it's very hard to gain an advantage. Once everybody's using the same, algorithms, which is what they're going to do, because they're not going to invent their own algorithms, most companies. Most companies are going to buy packages. And then they use the same packages, so everybody's equal. It levels the playing field again. So at the beginning, maybe a few companies get ahead because they jump on the bandwagon quickly. So that's why I'm a little skeptical. In the end, it's still going to boil down to companies remaining diverse, and trying to be more like a city in that sense, being tolerant of all kinds of maybe even what appear to be crazy ideas, allowing to develop within the company. And the other thing, by the way, that is very hard for companies as they get bigger is they tend to have a need and are forced to have large administrations and bureaucracies. That tends to outweigh the innovative part of a company. A city doesn't have that problem. That's why a city keeps going.
I see. Okay, it was a very great conversation, and I'm very glad to hear that. You give me some kind of the braveness to finish my book, and I very enjoyed that one.
Good. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we have a wonderful interview today, and I would like to give more chance to my audiences to his wonderful ideas. So thank you, Professor.
And thank you for inviting me.